Today, I'm going to take you through how you can use ChatGPT to do different functions in HR, finance, marketing, and other areas. First, I'll start in ChatGPT in the main screen. Now, what I'm going to do right now is I am going to hire somebody, and I have a job description that I want ChatGPT to help me write. So I take this job description, and then I post it. And this job description is we're hiring a technical leader in a marketing company, and they should have experience customizing CRMs, integrations, things like that. I'm also pointing it to our website. Now, that's the one thing ChatGPT has access to the internet, so I can send it to a website to learn more about that company. And last thing, I'm sending it to our core values because I want this job description to take that into account. So when I give this to ChatGPT, since it's been trained on the world's knowledge, it knows what a job description looks like, and it has that context. So it immediately starts formatting this job description in the way it expects to see it. The other thing that ChatGPT does is it's seen many job descriptions like this. While mine might be somewhat unique, it's not completely unique. This is an existing role. And so ChatGPT, again, using its own knowledge, can put that together. So as it goes through this, I get a job description that talks about the skills, the qualifications, why you should join our company, and even how to apply. So I have something that's workable here that I could use. And that's great and that's helpful, but I realize that, you know what? I already have a job description that it's for a similar job. So what I want ChatGPT to do now is I want it to go read that other job description from the similar job, and then I wanted to combine these two together. So when I upload that request and I point it to the other job description on the website, what it does now is it takes what it wrote before, it shows it on the screen, and then it starts editing it. So it's going through it line by line, determining what aspects of the description need to change based on this new piece of information. So consider it like a really sophisticated editor that knows line by line where things should change. And as you can see, it's adjusting certain areas. It's adding some more areas in other places, and it's adding new requirements and skills. It's adding more qualifications because those were in that past job description. So what I've been able to do is I started with a draft job description that it wrote for me, and now I have a job description that is more complete. And so for this, I can now publish this wherever we publish job descriptions. Maybe that's Indeed, maybe that's LinkedIn, but I have a job description that's workable. So what's next? Well, next, the resumes start coming in. So I have this job description, but I need to evaluate the resumes that are coming in. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take a resume and I am going to use that resume and actually have ChatGPT evaluate it. So I'm going to go find the example resume that I have, and then I'm going to go through that and I'll open it up and we'll have an example of this resume, and I'm going to open that up right now. Great. So now I have a resume. So I upload the resume, and on the left side of the screen, you can see it has it there. And so my next step is to say, is this person a good fit? Pretty simple ad. It knows what I was talking about. It has this thing called a context window. The context window is its short-term memory. So it knows what we were talking about before. I don't have to explain to it what we're discussing. And I'll remove the job description and I'll look at its response. And I can see the strengths. I see the gaps. And you know what? I like to get to the point. So I'll just ask, should I interview this person? And now what it's going to do is it's going to take its knowledge about the job. It's going to look at its own analysis, and it says yes. So this person deserves an interview. We need to learn more. Great. So when I interview a person, I like to have unique questions that really get to the heart of, yes, sure, their experiences, but even more importantly, the gaps. Because sometimes you see a gap in a resume, but there is something to fill that in that supports it. So because of that, I have to have a very specific set of questions. And in this case, I don't have a set of boilerplate questions, so I even need ChatGPT to help me. So I might just say, tell ChatGPT that, I'm conducting an interview with this person today, and I could use some interview questions. So I tell it, I'm conducting an interview of this candidate today. Based on your assessment, create interview questions appropriate to the job description and candidate skills and gaps. So then again, based on its context window, it's going to do that. So it's going through and it's figuring out different areas. It's even giving me some highlights on their areas here. And that's really great. So that's really helpful. But you know what I wanted to do? And rather than just prompt me on the right side with the questions, which is nice, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have it write the interview questions for me. I'm just going to say, write the few questions as a new document. And I get a whole new set of interview questions coming through. So I'm moving it on from what it was doing with that other document, which was it was interacting with it, editing it, and highlighting areas where I should ask questions, to a brand new document that's kind of like my cheat sheet for interview questions. And what's great about this is it organizes the interview questions in the way you would normally categorize the type of questions that you would do for a candidate for this role. And this gives us something to work with. So now when I conduct the interview with this person, I can have this document available. I might not necessarily ask every question. I might not even use it as a script, but what I might use it as a reference to guide our conversation, to guide our discussions. So now that I have this, I conduct the interview. Now in our organization, we use Teams and we record everything, but we also use other tools to record. But bottom line is, we have a transcript for every single meeting, and that includes interviews. So what I'll do now is I'm going to get from my computer a transcript. And so now I have a transcript of the interview with this person. Okay. And so what I want to do is I want ChatGPT to help me make sense of it. So I'm just going to say that attached is a transcript of my interview with this candidate. And based on this interview and what you know about the job description, assess whether this candidate is a good fit. Should we keep looking? And so now it's going through and it's looking at the fit and it's showing some of the highlights. So that there are some good highlights. There's some really good strengths there. Great. But he has some gaps, some technologies that he hasn't worked with, limited experience in some of the main areas of marketing. And so that's a concern. So what does ChatGPT think I should do? ChatGPT is concerned too. And the decision puts it in bold. Keep looking. So I know that this person is the type of person that maybe if I was willing to train them, we could bring them on. But if I need somebody to hit the ground running, they're a little short on the skills. So I have this. Well, what's next? Well, the great thing about having a transcript is you learn a lot about a person by how they speak, how they communicate, the words they choose, how they respond to questions. Now, the LLMs, the large language models that ChatGPT are based on, are trained on the world's knowledge. And there are public methodologies for measuring the personality or the behavior of a type of person. And we can use that public knowledge combined with the transcript to learn how best to communicate with this candidate. So what I'm going to do is say, based on the transcript of the interview, create a DISC and MBTI profile. So while there are private tools like Predictive Index and Culture Index, there's public tools like DISC and the Myers-Briggs. And I'm going to use the public tools because I have access to them. So create a DISC and MBTI profile and just say, how should I communicate with this person? And it's going to go learn about this person. And it figures out, okay, this person is an SC in DISC, which actually is a great profile for this type of job position. And look, he's an ISTJ. That's another good profile for this job description. So his personality was a pretty good match, even though his skills were falling a little bit short. And now it gives me some detail on how best to communicate with this person. And it tells me, okay, be concise and direct, focus us on detail. So this is a detail-oriented person that's very process-oriented. And it gives me a summary. So now when I want to communicate with them, I know how to do that. And while I could use this information to communicate myself, I might as well let the tool help me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have it write something for me. I will say, based on this person's personality profile, write a rejection letter. It knows where this person's gaps were, and it knows the areas that can improve, so it can talk to that. And it also knows his personality, So it's going to communicate in those terms. So it wrote this letter, and because of his personality profile, it's actually a little longer. It's probably a little longer than I would like. But what I can do, say, is make it shorter. And then it takes the letter and then it puts it up there on the screen, and then it begins the rewrite, which you just saw, and now it's shorter. So I have a shortened letter, and that's great. And maybe I send that to an email. But while I would never do this, if I wanted to do something quick and maybe not so polite, I could say, rewrite this email as an SMS text message with emojis. And now I am going to have a even shorter version where it goes and it does the rewrite for me, edits it in place. And this is a quick little text that sends the spirit of what we were getting across. So this is where we've taken a journey. We've started with a job description and we rewrote the job description. We then published that. We evaluated resumes. Now, I did one in this example, but you could evaluate many and, in fact, have ChatGPT sort them by best to least. We got the resumes. We then wrote interview questions, conducted an interview, got the transcript from that, learned together where this person's strengths and weaknesses were, decided to keep looking, and then obtain this person's personality profile, their Myers-Briggs and their DISC, from the way they communicate, wrote a letter to them, and ultimately summarized it to a text. We all did all this in a very short amount of time. So that's one way you can use these tools to help with job descriptions. The next thing I'm going to do is tell you how you can infer how an organization is doing based purely on performance reviews. I've worked with some groups that have deployed performance reviews at scale, and one of the biggest challenges they're always facing is making sense of all of that content, all of that qualitative content that is just raw text, and trying to create inference from it. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to show you how I can take a group of performance reviews, starting with one, determine categorization factors, and then determine how best to plan for future training and other areas that can improve the company. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to upload a series of performance reviews. And go get those, and I am just going to take maybe just a half a dozen of them. So I have these performance reviews and we've uploaded them. And the next step I'm going to do is I'm going to try to learn from these performance reviews. What can we infer from them? And I'm going to say attached are performance reviews. What are the 5 common areas of performance that we need to address for all of these? And it's going through and it's read every performance review, and it looks for the areas that need to be addressed. Now, if I'm the head of HR, I can use this information to plan my future training programs. In this case, I probably want to have a training program on time management, task prioritization. Maybe we talk about team collaboration. There's some technology and some training and skills developments. So this kind of gives me an idea of how these are organized. Well, our company is C1M, and C1M has its own set of core values. So maybe what I do is I go to C1M and I look at the core values. And I grab these core values and I say, maybe I want to do is I want to reorganize the performance reviews in terms of core values. So I'll just say, here are our core values. Recategorize areas of performance based on core values, right? So if I'm the head of HR, I'm using this to determine my training programs. But if I'm the CEO, I need to have a little bit more insight in how we're doing with those values. And so I copied those off the website, I uploaded them. And so now what it's doing is it's looking at each core value, and it's essentially doing a map. The one thing large language models do really, really well is translation and summarization. And when I say translation, I mean taking one concept and translating into another concept and determining how similar concepts are. And summarization is taking large bodies of content and crystallizing it into concepts so that those can be compared and contrasted. And in here, it took those performance reviews which had nothing to do with our core values, but reorganized them. And so under integrity, it found some areas. Under innovation, it found technology, process improvement, problem solving. Under communication, collaboration, team communication, receiving and giving back, it pulled all this out of the qualitative data, persistence, positive attitude, persistent pursuit of excellence. It's given me this categorization, and now it's telling the core value, the key areas of performance. So I'm getting insights into how ChatGPT, its model, is interpreting the content that's coming through. And that's very helpful and that's very useful. But what I want to do now is I'd like to know how ChatGPT thinks we're doing. So for this example, I uploaded a half a dozen fictional performance reviews. But imagine I uploaded 50 real performance reviews. I'd like to know how we're doing. So what I might say is, I might say give us, score us in aggregate using letter grades, and then just have it reorganize all of this. And so now it tells me each core value, it gives us a grade, and it tells me why. And for each of these, communication's a little weak here. Persistence is good. That's nice. Positive attitude, great. So it sounds like it's probably a good place to work. Pursuit of excellence is good. And we got an overall aggregate grade of a B+. That's great. So now as the CEO, I'm looking at these things and I'm thinking, well, this is now something I can work with. I can determine the values that maybe we're having some issues with. My head of HR and I can collaborate and determine what we should pursue and improve going forward. So these are two areas where in HR, we can use a tool, a public tool like ChatGPT, to make things easier. Now, the next area of use is around analyzing financial documents. So I'm going to start a new chat, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to upload a profit and loss statement. And in fact, I grabbed a profit and loss statement off the internet, and it's a PNG file. It's a picture of a profit and loss statement. And I want ChatGPT to help me with this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell it, this is a P&L. How are we doing? Very simple. It uploads the P&L, the picture of the P&L, and now it's going to evaluate it. So since this is trained on the world's knowledge, it's read countless textbooks on financial analysis. It knows about courses and what those courses teach in analyzing it. And this is just an example of insights that came out of a P&L statement. And I get a summary. Now, I might say to it, how did we do in the last month? Are we improving? And this will show us if we're improving or not, but more importantly, it'll show you how it's starting to look and analyze things a little differently. So at first, it gives us a summary last month, and then it does a comparison of the prior month. And so we can see month over month if things have improved. And then it answers the questions. Income decreased from November, cost of goods sold improved significantly. That's good. So our cost of goods sold improved. Gross profit increased. That's great. So there are some positives, and it gives me a conclusion. And that's very useful. But I might want to see my financials in more of a comprehensive way. So I could upload a balance sheet. And in this case, for the sake of showing this, it's a JPEG of balance sheet. And so I might just say, review this balance sheet. How are we doing? And then it uploads the balance sheet, and then of course it knows what a balance sheet is. So when it looks at the file, it immediately knows how it should evaluate it. And of course it evaluates a balance sheet differently than it's evaluating a P&L. And it's giving me some details. It's looking at the trends. And this is giving me a conclusion on how we're doing. It has some concerns, and it has some recommendations. And so this is the type of thing I could sit with the controller or CFO and say, this is what we need to get to. And so my next set of questions might be, combine these to get a full picture. What should I ask my CFO to do over the next 90 days? Now, this is my assistant, my co-pilot. Now, what I like to say about large language models is it's like you hired an intern with a master's degree or a PhD and whatever it is you want them to do, except they've never had a job before and they know nothing about your company. How do you prompt a person like that? You know they have the base knowledge, but they need to be fed a lot of detail. Treat ChatGPT the same way. Communicate to it, give it enough information so it knows what to do with what you're asking. In this case, I'm asking basic stuff that the grad student, or I should say the MBA, would already know. But if I go in deeper and I want to know more about from my company, I may have to prompt it further. So here we've got an action plan for the next 90 days. And this is something I can now sit down with my CFO and we could talk about this and we could set some goals for the company and we have something to work with. And all this took was uploading it to ChatGPT. And you may be thinking, well, how does it really know how to do this? Well, you can ask it. Say, what did you do to do this analysis? Show your work and formulas. Let's just see how it approached it. And it tells us its steps and how it evaluates the P&L. It gives us the formulas that it used. It shows the math, the calculation. It's, just like on a college test, it's showing its work. And it reviews the balance sheet and shows us how it approaches that. And it looks at total assets, and then it looks at total liabilities, looks at trending. And then when it combines it, it starts looking at other things. So it looks at the current ratio, and now it breaks things down for us, and it shows us the key formulas it used. And so now I have an idea, and look, then the current ratio is a 0.37. So, we got some liquidity issues. This is something that we are able to get from this data really quickly without having to do so much manual work. Now, the last area I want to share with you is in marketing. So what I showed you before was essentially analysis and prompting. But when we go through marketing, I'm actually going to teach ChatGPT a skill. And the first skill I'm going to teach it is how to write a brand script. We use a methodology by a gentleman named Donald Miller called StoryBrand. It's an excellent book, and it's a really great way to start your marketing process. And in StoryBrand, they have this thing called a brand script, and it's a narrative. The narrative is about, well, you are a business and you have a customer, and that customer has a problem. They can't overcome it on their own. And they come to you. You're the authoritative, trusted guide, and you have a solution for them. And if they follow your solution, they use you as a service provider, they're going to have these positive outcomes. If they go another direction, there's these stakes, there's these negative things, there's these consequences. And this narrative is usually only like 2 or 3 pages. But once written, it allows everybody involved to get on the same page. Whether you are a graphic designer, a copywriter, content creator, developer, financial analyst, whatever your role in the company, everyone can align really easily when they read a story. And once everybody's aligned, it lets everybody do their job, especially in the areas of content marketing, a lot easier. So here what I'm going to do is I am going to teach ChatGPT how to write a brand script. And I'm going to do that by uploading a prompt that tells it context, meaning it's going to set the context that there is going to be a transcript of a meeting and that there'll be a lot of questions asked. And then it's going to say each step of what to create. And it writes the prompt, and through the StoryBrand methodology, it describes what each piece is, and it describes how to do it. And then it summarizes this by telling it how to output it. So in summary, it tells it what to output. And so what I'll do is I will get from it the structure based purely on a transcript. So I have this, and I'm just going to start that. And now that I have my brand script, it's going to prompt me and say, well, please upload a transcript from a meeting so I can analyze it. Great. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a transcript from a meeting, and I'm going to upload that. And this is just a conversation we had with a group that was discussing their business, and we were working together on developing their brand. And so what I'll do is I will pull that transcript from another location. And now the transcript's in there, and I will submit it. So it's going through the transcript, going through all these people talking back and forth. And what it's done now is it's learned about this business through the questions we've asked. But we didn't ask questions to write a Brandscript specifically. We asked questions just to learn about the business. But now it's outputting an actual Brandscript where it is talking about the customer. It's talking about their demographics. It's going through the type of problem they have. In StoryBrand, there's this concept of a problem and three different problems: an external, internal, and philosophical. External problem is the actual problem. Internal problem is how they feel about it. And philosophical problem is there ought to be some sort of solution, or there should be some way that we can get this resolved. It's able to infer all these from our dialogue simply with a 1-hour meeting talking about a business with that business owner or with that leadership team. And here we've got an entire Brandscript that we can then give to a professional copywriter to then tweak, revise, expand. But it makes for a really good starting point. So the copywriter is not starting from scratch. They now have something to work with that they can expand upon. And then this starts the conversation with all the different parties to agree upon a single Brandscript when they're done. And so you have this, and that's great. But now that you have this and you have that conversation, you can also begin the creative process. So for example, if this was a startup and maybe they didn't already have a website, you could say create a sitemap for a website and write the copy for each page. Since this has been trained by the world's knowledge, it's seen ISP. This happens to be an ISP. It's seen ISP web pages before. It knows roughly how they're structured. So it already has some thoughts on how to do that. So it gives us a sitemap and then immediately starts writing copy for us. And you should notice that it's actually putting in quotes there. These are not quotes from what people said. These are intended to be quotes that it wrote based on what it knew about the business. Reliable high-speed internet where you need it most. Say goodbye to slow, unreliable service and experience the difference with local responsive support. So see, it's already building some good copy. It's even building the 3-step plan. What a 3-step plan is you got to make it super easy to know how to do business with you. And it's always a 3-step plan. In this case, it's check your coverage, schedule your installation, enjoy reliable high-speed internet. That's simple. And it even has call to action buttons. So try to avoid the learn mores and put better ones like check your coverage. And it even has the brand promise in there. And it does this for each of the pages that it identified in the sitemap. So now we have a starting point. So where once we would do a mock-up of a website and we would use fake text, that lorem ipsum text, we don't do that anymore. Now we can start out with a framework of a website that has the first pass at the text. And then the copywriter is now free to expand upon this with a starting point, all built off of a Brandscript that was generated by training ChatGPT with a good prompt on how to do that and feeding it a transcript of a conversation. And now that that's done, maybe I go to the next step. It gave a blog page as an example. I might tell it, write 5 blog post ideas and include social posts. I might even say use emojis and hashtags. And this way, we've got a starting point for the actual content marketing. And this can be given to a content specialist to start planning out the content strategy. Or if they're doing search engine optimization SEO, this could be used to feed the keyword analysis that will happen later on. And so it comes up with these ideas, and you'll notice the social posts have emojis in it, they have hashtags, and they don't all have the same hashtags. The hashtag is specific to the blog post, and it's the type of hashtag that one would expect. We didn't have to go do research. We didn't have to go find these hashtags. The tool did that for us, just using ChatGPT. And that's an example of how you have it work with a prompt that teaches it a skill. Now, the last thing I'm going to take you through is where you use a prompt to tell it how you want your output, but you use documents to teach it the skill. And so what we're going to do is we are going to start a new chat, and I am going to teach it how we teach designers and developers and other specialists to build a website. So I'll start with conversion rate optimization items to check on a website, and I'll go to SEO basics, And then I'm going to add web design must-haves. So historically, what we would do is we would teach our different team members how to do different areas. And whenever we started with a new project, we'd evaluate the existing website to see how good it was. And we had our own approach to evaluating it. Well, these evolved into documents, and each document is a different type of specialty. Conversion rate optimization. When somebody arrives, they're the right type of visitor? Are they taking the action you want them to take? SEO basics. Are you getting the traffic from organic sources? And is it the right traffic? And web design, is the layout something that will keep people on the page, will keep people engaged, and will it follow a process that can be consistently deployed? So those are the 3 training documents we gave it, all Word documents. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a prompt. So I'll go and I will feed it a prompt that tells it what I want to come from it. And I'm going to paste the prompt in here, and it's essentially teaching it how to do an analysis of a website. And once it has these pieces, it's going to say, great, give me the URL and I'll analyze it for you. So what we're going to do now is we're going to use these combinations to evaluate a website. So I might pick a website from, let me pick one from a vendor of interesting games. How about that? So I'm going to go to a place that sells Mahjong sets. And let's see what they have to say. So we're going to go in here and we'll upload this Mahjong online, and then we'll feed it. And then now what it's going to do is it's read the documents already. So it's going through its prompt and it's breaking down the analysis using the prompt. And it's first looking at conversion rate optimization. It likes the design, likes some of the use of website white space. However, there's a little bit of a weakness in key product information, and I agree with that. That is missing, and product descriptions are pushed too far. Yes, they're lost. It gets into the copy. It's not really very engaging or descriptive copy. They could have a clearer value proposition. Looks for the calls to action, and it sees some issues there. And essentially what it's done is it's learned how to evaluate a website, and it went out there, and then it gave its feedback based purely on what we taught it. Now, of course, I can feed a website to ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT analyze it, but then I'm having ChatGPT evaluate something on its own knowledge. This is a situation where I don't want it to use its own knowledge. In fact, I want it to forget its own knowledge. I want it to use the way we do things. And that's what it's done here. And for this website, it went through all those things. It gave it a C. There are some areas where it can improve. And this is something that's usable. So what once took a lot of training to get somebody who could do this, and it would take a bit of time. I mean, it might take 15 to 20 minutes, not a huge amount of time, but we're doing this much more quickly. And these are examples of how you can use ChatGPT either for its own knowledge to create things for you, to evaluate and analyze documents, to teach it a skill, or to ultimately teach it how to do something that you would teach with documents and prompting. And all through these things together, it allows for you to prototype in a level 0 type environment using a public tool. And as you evolve these things, as your prompts get better and more useful to your organization, that's when you look at your prompts and the content and you think of it as your intellectual property. And that's when you move from level 0 to level 1, where you put all of that behind your own walls in a tool or a component in your systems that is available for your team and your team alone. Hope this is helpful. See you in the next video.